Hello, welcome to the second part of player movement. In previous section we implemented basic movements for our character, and in this video we're going to implement gravity and jumping for our character. So to start, double click on player movement script and open it up. In here we're gonna first define a few variables and then define a few functions to do jumping and gravity for us. So here let's say header, call it jump parameters, params, and in here we're going to define a few parameters. So the first thing is going to be serialized field private float gravity, and I'm gonna just say 9.18, and it should be like minus 9.818. The next thing is serialized field private transform ground check, and this one is going to be a game object, actually a transform of a game object that we're gonna put under the player to check if his feet is touching the ground or not. The next thing is serialized field private float ground distance, so it's going to be the distance that we want to apply the ground check for. I'm going to say 0.2 is good. We can also change it in the hierarchy. The next thing is that we're going to say serialized field private layer mask ground mask, so ground check mask. So this one is going to be the layer of the objects that we want our player to be able to jump on. Private bool is grounded, which we say it's true. This boolean will say if the player is grounded or not. The next thing is serialized field float jump height, which would say it's like 4. I think it's good. And then a private vector 3 for velocity, and this one is to control the velocity in the y-axis. So the next thing that we're going to implement are two functions. The first one is private void jump, and the next one is private void gravity handle. So first here we're going to check if the character is grounded, so we say is grounded equals to physics dot check sphere, and then we should pass 3 parameters. The first one is the position, so we're gonna pass ground check dot position. The second thing is the radius, so we're gonna say ground distance. And the third thing would be the mask that we want it to be able to check, and it is ground check mask. So basically in this position and with this radius, it's gonna make a sphere, and it's gonna check if this sphere has collided with anything that has this layer mask. So if it actually this sphere collides with ground, it'll return true, and else it'll return false. So in real world, these equations of motions are applied to different objects that exist. So these physics formulas are real, and in our game we're gonna use this third formula to simulate gravity, and we're gonna just use this right part because this one is the initial velocity and we don't need it. So A is going to be gravity acceleration and T is time. So in our code we're going to say velocity.y plus equal gravity times time dot delta time. And then we are going to say player controller dot move, and then we're going to pass the velocity and we will multiply it by time dot delta time, because in the physics formula the time was powered by 2. But here we have a problem, and that is that if we hit the ground, the velocity will be increased, and gravity is like a negative number, so the velocity in the axis y will be a really big negative number. So we should say that if the character is grounded, just set the velocity to a small negative number. So here we say if is grounded, then set velocity dot y equal to like a small number, like a -1, and that will handle the gravity for us. So for the jumping, we're going to use the fourth equation, and we're going to say that the initial velocity is 0, and we're going to use this equation to simulate jumping. So if we go back to the code, here we first check if we have pressed the jump button. So we say if input.get button down jump is true, then check if the character is grounded. So if is grounded, if we press the jump button, and then if the character is grounded, then set the velocity of our character, velocity.y equals to mathf.sqrt jump height times -2 times gravity. So basically this equation is the reshaped form of this equation. You should do a little bit of math to get to it, and we actually put the -2 here because the gravity is a negative number and we want our jump, the velocity.y, to be a positive number, so we put -2 here. And the last thing that we need to do is to call these two functions on the update method. So here we say jump and we say gravity handle, and then we have to go back to Unity. So save and go back to Unity. So in the player section there are a few parameters that we have to fill. The first one is the ground check game object transform. So under the player, click and make an empty game object and call it ground check. Then press F to focus on it and just drag it on the bottom of the character. It should be on the bottom of our character. So I think this one looks pretty good. Yeah, here is good. And then on the player movement script, just drag this ground check under this one. The next thing that we have to actually select is the ground check mask. So for this, click on your plane and then go here under the layer and then say add layer, and under one of these user layers just type ground, and then again click on the plane, and under the layer select ground. And in here under the player movement script, here check the ground layer mask. And if you have multiple layers that you want your player to be able to jump on, select multiple layers. But for me it's only the ground. So now we can run the game and see how it works. And in here if you press jump, nothing will happen because there is a problem with our script. So go back to your script. In here you should check if the velocity is negative and then apply this. we say velocity.y. If it is a negative number, then apply this. Velocity.y equals to -1. So now if you press jump, your character will be able to jump and you will not be able to double jump. And there's only one more thing that I want to show you. If you want your gravity to be more, or you want your jump height to be more or less, or ground check to be more or less, you can change it in your jump parameters. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content. If you have any questions, please ask me down in the comment section, and I see you in the next videos.